All right. Allison, looks like we've got a pretty good number.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our training here today. We're so glad that you're able to join us. Just a few housekeeping issues. We'll be having time for interaction and questions and answers, but feel free to put questions in the chat during the process. If you're having any tech issues, you will see Yui has changed her name there to tech support, so you can message her directly and she can help. But we're really glad that you were able to join us today about making meetings with newly elected officials most efficient and effective. I'm excited. I'm Allison Frazier. I work with Voices for Healthy Kids, and I run our grassroots and communications team. And we'll have our team introduce ourselves, actually, and then we'll get started. So I'll send it to Joshua Harris first.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. I think, yeah, some people may still be in morning, depending on what coast you're in. I'm Joshua Harris, Senior Communications Manager, and excited for us to be working on developing and maximizing the potential of the NCIT, or the National Collaborative on Infants and Toddlers. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We're going to start with a brief icebreaker where we're going to ask everyone, starting with our team, to introduce themselves, what city you're in, and your favorite song during high school. Our team's going to do that, and you guys will do the same thing and drop it in the chat, and feel free to have fun with it. And so I'll start by saying my name is Joshua Harris. I am in Baltimore, Maryland, and my favorite song when I was in high school that I most vividly remember was TLC, No Scrubs. And I will pass it to Philip.
Thanks so much, Joshua. My name is Phil Noyes. I'm a senior policy analyst on the Voices team. And I too am located in Baltimore, Maryland. High school, the high school song, I would have to say Born to Run. And I will pass it off to Claudia.
Hi, everyone. Claudia Goitia, Voices for Healthy Kids, she, her, hers. My title here at Voices is Senior Advocacy Consultant, National Advocacy Consultant. It's new. I'm still getting used to it. Favorite song in high school? Oh my gosh, that's kind of hard. I'll go with Smashing Pumpkins, 1979. And I'll pass back to Joshua.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see some good ones coming in the chat. I see some Pearl Jam, some Garth Brooks. Oh, okay, we got some good ones. Living on a Prayer. All right, we've got some really good ones coming in. Hopefully we didn't take you guys back too far, but it's always good to reminisce and think about those things. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen so that we can get this show on the road for you all. Again, thank you all so much for joining. Continue to drop in the chat and share with us your name, the city that you're in, and what's your favorite song from high school. And we're going to continue to go along. Feel free to chat, as Allison said, and drop questions in the chat. Joshua Harris, we're with Voices for Healthy Kids, and we are taking over to grow and develop and continue to make sure that the National Collaborative on Infants and Toddlers can be a great resource for you. And today's conversation is about how we advocate for prenatal-to-three issues and make the most with meetings with legislators, specifically newly elected legislators. We know that we have lots of folks who are coming in office who are just getting sworn in, and we have an opportunity to really capitalize on that as they prepare to go and represent their constituents, and we can potentially make them champions for our issues. And so why is this important? Why now? Why NCIT? And why freshman legislators? As one of the momentum building partners for PCI, the Pritzker's Children Initiative, we are tasked with elevating advocacy opportunities through our work and expertise and effort to support the focus of healthy beginnings. PCI, we understand that advocacy begins with education of our decision makers at the state, local, tribal, and federal level. And so this is extremely important to make sure that our decision makers, our legislators, understand who we are, what we do, and why our issues are important to all of us and how they'll impact us, not just now, but in the future, so that we can hopefully convert them to become champions of our prenatal-to-three issues. And we are excited because this is the beginning of the year, and there's an opportunity with many new elected officials being sworn in office to have first call and the first opportunity to get in front of them with our issues and introduce ourselves. And many of them will be looking for issues to champion. And so that's what this opportunity is for. And there is a wide expansive network with the NCIT that we can use as resources to collaborate and continue to do this great work. And so our hope is to introduce you to this just as a brief example of what meetings look like, how you can set up meetings with newly elected legislators or previously elected legislators who may be veterans, but really targeting and prioritizing our newly elected legislators so that they can get to know you, your organizations, and the work that you're doing to improve outcomes for our children and prenatal-to-three space. And with that, we're going to introduce you to Claudia, go back to Claudia to talk about our key policy areas and why they're important and what we'll be focusing on and talking about with these legislators. Claudia?
Thank you, Joshua. So if many of you in the room are familiar, PN3 are the policy issue areas that the NCIT brings us together in one space. When we're looking to talk to legislators, we want to present the issues as opportunities in different areas. And how we've packaged them together are three buckets. Healthy beginnings are those policies that support a healthy pregnancy and healthy babies. So, for example, extending postpartum Medicaid coverage, protecting and expanding paid family and medical leave, supportive families, policies that foster safe, stable, and nurturing families and communities. Things like expanding SNAP, childcare subsidies, state earned income tax credits, and then quality care and learning. These are policies that help to assure the children are cared for in high quality settings that support social, emotional, and intellectual development. So in those spaces, we want to, talk about early care and education standards, appropriations, and childcare subsidies. When you're entering conversations with elected officials, you want to make sure that you present yourself as a partner, as a resource to them in these particular issue areas and these particular spaces. You want to make yourself available to be that support that can help them better understand issues at the federal, state, local level, depending on what space you're working in. These meetings are an opportunity to present yourself as the experts that they can count on and that they can tap to providing information, bringing them the resources, the data, all of this wonderful information that your organizations are experts in, all of the information and resources that you'll find at the ncit.org website. And then also now with Voices for Healthy Kids, the American Heart Association, helping to support and building that advocacy, expertise, and information to you for the work that you're going to be doing with legislators. And when we're talking about these different policies, the NCIT will have resources for you to come prepared to these meetings, as well as have something to leave behind for legislators to reach out and get that support. And so Josh and Phil will discuss a little bit more about that as we move forward with the webinar. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Claudia. And just to mention as well, to go back to our why slide, we actually do have leave behinds for you. And I'm going to ask Yui to put up on the screen the first leave behind. She just dropped into the chat and she's going to share just that screenshot. And this is for you specifically on why it's important to meet with newly elected legislators, just for your information. And so it's kind of got some bullet points here. I'm not sure what's happening. Oh, and so going through this, we're going to leave this with you. So you have it in the chat, so you have access to it. And all of these documents that we're going to leave with you will be customizable so that you can put your name, logo, and contact person for your organization in them. And so that's extremely important. So just briefly here, one, we don't have to settle for the same old, same old. When we have newly elected legislators, it's an opportunity for us to meet new folks who have new priorities and new issues. Two, new leaders are great for building consensus. Sometimes legislators who've been around for a while may have their own issue areas and own priorities, and they also may not necessarily be the best messenger sometimes for issues. And so newly elected leaders come to the slate with a clean slate and no previous background or engagement with the legislature or other legislators. And then three, relationships matter. It's important to get to them early to build these relationships. And so hopefully they become an ally. And four, the early bird gets the worm. And so you can kind of go through this now that you have the link and see that later. And we'll continue, and we have more, as Claudia mentioned, that we'll drop in the chat as we go through the presentation. And I'm going to pull my screen back up here, and we'll continue to go through. And if you guys have questions, again, please do feel free to drop them in the chat. We want this to be a dialogue. We'll have an opportunity later on to openly ask questions. And so we'll go from there. All right, where are we at? Understanding your legislators. It's extremely important that you go into a meeting not just blind, totally, right? You want to know who these folks are, what their background is, where they come from, and kind of what their value system is, what is important to them. Our commitment is to do this work and to be able to get things done in the prenatal-to-three space to positively impact outcomes for our children. And we want to do that without stereotypes, judgment, and well as understanding our values and the values and feelings of our legislators. And so it's important for us to do some research. Is this person married? Do they have children of their own? Is this someone that may have differing political views than you? We recently developed a messaging guide for working with conservative legislators on some of the prenatal-to-three spaces. And so, and that messaging guide, we'll also drop that in the chat for you to take a look. Maybe you participated in one of our previous webinars of going through that and really understanding the background of those. And so we, in that messaging guide, broke out what we call the archetypes of conservative legislators or conservative leaders. And they are church and country, economic influence, legacy Republican, and populist. And each of those kind of has a different value system and different spaces where they stand. And so knowing that, understanding that going into your meeting will be extremely helpful for you to navigate that meeting effectively so that we can build the relationship, build consensus, and be able to get things done. It's critical for us to really understand the value system of that legislator as well as what they're needing. And they've campaigned, and so there's lots of information out there about them, their family, whether they have religious beliefs or they attend a church, and it's just good to have those bullet points, just like when you're meeting with anyone else. And so we'll share that messaging guide with you if you're interested, or if you are in a place where you're dealing with conservative legislators and need help with messaging and understanding and connecting, that can be a great resource for you as well. One of the things that's happened and that we've experienced throughout COVID and is that there was not an opportunity to meet with legislators, and that forced many of us to meet virtually. And now we're saying, why not meet virtually? Sometimes the barriers or the distance of a state capitol or city hall can be an issue. And so meeting virtually provides lots of opportunities for us. And so don't count it out just because we're back in person meeting now. It provides an opportunity if maybe the legislator can't be on site, maybe they have to travel, or maybe they have to pick up a child or something. And so being aware of that, the opportunities that virtual meetings provide is extremely important. It can help you overcome the challenges of distance and many more. It expands your reach. Use it when meeting with federal, state, or local officials. Now that state houses and city halls are reopened, people have become accustomed to virtual meetings. It's like a normal thing, and they're much more open, and it's oftentimes much more flexible with their schedule. It expands your voice. It can be used as a means to recruit others to participate in the meeting who normally would be unable to participate and join in, who you want to join in meeting with these legislators. And it can be used to show first timers how easy it is to meet with the legislator. So don't be afraid of virtual options. And most importantly, it's used to maintain relationships. You may not be able to make it down to City Hall or to the state legislature. And so this is an opportunity to say, hey, do you have a second so we can check in with you? I want to share some of our priorities for this year and see what your priorities are. And legislators are very open to virtual meetings. All right, so when we're preparing for this meeting, what should we do? Is it going to be in person? Are we going to use virtual? If we're using virtual, what are our tech concerns, right? Checking our tech background, using your computer and not a phone is going to be important unless you're really good with it. But we want to make sure that you're on a computer and you're in a stable environment, making sure that your device supports the platform. I've been on meetings where sometimes it's been difficult for attendees to use a special platform where they didn't use one of the more popular ones. And so are you going to be using Zoom, Google Meets, WebEx, Microsoft Teams? We have lots of options for that. Checking your background, being aware of what's around you if you're meeting virtually, if there's going to be noise, distractions, making sure that you have yourself muted. You want the elected to be able to concentrate on your words and not distractions, right? And so that's important no matter where you're meeting. And then, of course, making sure that your name. I've been on meetings sometimes where the last time that someone was logged into an account, they used a different name, or their child used it for school and they changed name, or there was a icebreaker where they changed their name and you're now logged in as Blue Fox instead of your name. And so you want to be aware of that and just check those things in advance, as well as thinking about adding your organization or your location to your name, right? At the end of your name so that folks can know where you're at and they can see it right there under your picture. And so being aware of those things is important. Before the meeting, what should you do before the meeting? You want to, of course, schedule the meeting early. And so we know that folks are coming into office. We should be reaching to them before sessions start, before they get into session. And don't feel bad if they don't get back to you right away. Many of these folks are still hiring staff. They have an onslaught of people that are reaching out to them. So reach out multiple times from multiple ways. That means you can send an email, give their office a call, send a Facebook message or a tweet, say, hey, we'd love to connect with you at this. You'd be surprised by how quickly elected leaders respond to social media inquiries because they know that people are watching and it's a public space and they just want to be responsive. So that can oftentimes be a benefit to you. Also, just being aware of if that legislator has social media, right? Sometimes there's a generational gap and they may not have it, or they may just have it and it's just being monitored by a staffer, but being aware of that is important. So don't get discouraged if they don't respond. Continue to try multiple ways. You want to plan your topics and who's going to be attending the meeting in advance. You want to know who's going to be there, who needs to be in the room. Ideally, you don't want to have more than 3 to 4 people. You don't want the legislator to feel overwhelmed. And then you, of course, want to make sure that you provide a link if necessary, or any materials that you can email them in advance. They like to kind of be prepared going into a meeting to say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, and have an understanding in advance so that they can feel comfortable discussing the issues. And then practice, right? It's doesn't hurt you to practice, whether it's in person or virtual, to sit down with your core group who's going to be attending the meeting and go through a dress rehearsal. You want to be prepared and make sure that these are the points that we want to go through, that we want to hit. And then, of course, remind/confirm the meeting the day before or the morning of. If it's in person, you do not want to go all the way to a place only to find out that they had to reschedule. And so you want to be sure to reach out likely the day before, the day prior to a meeting, to get a firm commitment to ensure that everyone on your team is showing up to the right place at the right time to meet with the right person. Next slide. You want to go into this meeting knowing what you want. We're not just going this. Yes, this is an introductory meeting, but we know that we want this legislator to be on our side. So we want to be specific. We want to know that we have a policy or that we're going to be developing legislation or a resolution that we want this elected's support on. So go into the meeting knowing you don't want to kind of leave it open to the wind. It is an introduction, but you always want to go in prepared. Not just knowing what you want, why you want it. Have some examples of data. Have an example of a story of how this will impact people's lives. And know that this legislator or what committee, who can give you what it is that you need and make sure that it moves. If it's a piece of legislation, what committee would it most likely start in? Is this legislator assigned to that committee? Being aware of those things is extremely important, as well as if that legislator isn't on a committee, but a key ally of theirs may be a chair of the committee, right? And saying, oh, we know that you've worked with so-and-so on this and they're chair of this committee where this legislation will most likely start. Those things are all extremely helpful when going into these meetings. So you want to be prepared, go into your meeting prepared to have it asked, know why you want it, and know who's in power to make the decision and make it happen. The day of the meeting. Know your roles. We mentioned practice earlier, and it's okay to practice in advance. You should go into a meeting and you should assign roles with everyone on your team so that everyone can stick to. And I'd say probably the most important person or people are the timekeeper and the meeting leader, right? You want the person who's going to introduce and to everyone, the legislator to everyone on the team and why they're there, and then someone who's keeping time. Legislators are often overbooked and backed up on time. So you always want to have someone that's managing that to make sure that you stick to the agenda to move along and get your issue discussed and don't get too distracted or off track. You, of course, are leaving room because this is an introductory meeting. You want to get to know them. You want them to get to know you, but you do definitely want to guide and practice. In these meetings, you should have a meeting leader, a storyteller, a pitch person, the note taker, and the timekeeper. Now, we know the meeting leader is the person who keeps the agenda and starts and does the introduction. The storyteller, if you're talking about legislation or an issue specifically, you want to have an example. And it doesn't have to be your personal example, but you want to have an example that that legislator can say, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. I didn't realize that was a thing, and something to help them to remember. And we're going to talk about storytelling and the storyteller in the next slide just a bit. And then, of course, you want to have someone as a pitch person who's going to pitch, this is the legislation, or this is what we want. This is the resolution that we'd like to see. This is what we're asking of you. And this is why we're asking of it. And so that person can be prepared for, this is when I want to ask them, and this is how I want to ask them. And then, of course, a note taker, someone who's taking notes to follow up and ensure that you don't miss anything that the legislators requested, and that you have important dates that may be critical to moving something forward, or even just the date for a follow-up conversation. It may be a situation where the legislator is asking or may need more time to review. And so you want to do a follow-up call, right? And so a note taker is extremely important, as well as a timekeeper. And also, I know that I said that you want to have 3 to 4 people in the meeting. Any one of these roles can be combined, right? So you may be the meeting leader, and you may also be the pitch person. Or you could be the storyteller and the note taker, right? It doesn't have to be individual people or separate to move forward with that. I see a question from Zakia. We'll pause to answer that question. Zakia?
Yes, thank you so much. So my question was, could you clarify a little bit more what the meeting leader is doing if the storyteller and the pitch person are kind of driving the conversation?
Well, I'd say actually the meeting leader is the one who's driving the conversation, and they could also be a storyteller or a pitch person. The meeting leader is essentially kind of like the chair, if you will, of the meeting, right? The one who has the agenda and says that these are our issue areas and introduces the team to the legislator and goes around and kind of is also in making sure that everyone else stays on task on doing that. So they could also be the storyteller and the pitch person. It just depends on what your capacity is. I've been in some meetings where I've had to be all of these, right? That's not the best situation, but it sometimes has to happen depending on what your capacity is. Always good to bring at least one other person with you, but you'll have to play many of these roles, and you'll get the opportunity to do that later on today as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we have any other questions about this slide or these roles going into a meeting? All right, we're going to keep moving along. We're going to talk about storytelling, the power of storytelling. I mentioned earlier you want to have a storyteller, and you want to use stories with your legislators because storytelling is a powerful communication tool. It's one of the oldest in time. It helps us connect, right? It is something that is old, that has existed since the beginning of time. In every culture, it's a universal language that everyone understands. Telling a story, it stimulates our imaginations. It creates a sense of community amongst listeners and storytellers alike. It is something that can be sure to make sure that we have real examples for our policymakers to remember and understand the importance of why our issue matters, right? The way that our brains work, we think in stories, right? We create stories in our head. We see something and we wonder, or we begin to piece stories together about why this is that way. That's how we work. And so we want to understand that and use it to our advantage, that if we tell a story, it helps someone to connect with our issue and will make our issue stand out, right? And again, it doesn't have to be your personal story. It can be someone else's story or another example of someone that's been impacted by a policy or one of these issues. But you want it to be relatable and be able to express that, because that's what makes you remembered, is that story. They'll hopefully inspire that legislator to be like, wow, I didn't realize that this is an issue that I really want to support and that I want to be helpful with. That is the ultimate goal. So never forget or underestimate the power of storytelling. All right, sample meeting agenda. You want to do introductions, overview of your issues. You want to have that personal story. If you have materials or handouts that you didn't send in advance, or maybe you did and you just want to give it to them a hard copy, you want to give opportunity to that, and then making the ask, right? This is probably a lot at the most time because you want to give that legislator an opportunity to respond. Sometimes we'll do something in a meeting and we'll say, well, we'd love if you can do this for us. And then there's a second or two of silence and we go, and if you're not able to do it, then maybe we can do this. Don't do that, right? Make your ask and pause. Wait, don't be afraid of the silence. Give the legislator an opportunity to process, give them an opportunity to think it through, and allow them to respond before you change or shorten your ask, right? You don't want to feel rushed. They teach this when you're doing fundraising calls. You call someone and you ask them for money, and then you take a sip of water and you wait. You don't want to talk yourself out of your own opportunity, right? You just want to wait. Don't be afraid. Allow them the opportunity to say yes, no, or let me think about it a little bit more. So don't allow that silence to scare you into changing your ask to maybe something that's a little bit less than what you actually want. Because remember, we went into this meeting, we know what we want, we know why we want it and why it's important, and we know who can give it to us. And so we prepared for that. Then, of course, closing out the meeting, knowing our next step is extremely important. Is there a follow-up call, conversation? Is there something that we need to send, more materials that they've requested? Is there, are there references to the legislation or the pieces that we've shared with them that they like to review and see where we got our data from and information? Happy to share all of that, right? The next steps. Any questions about that? All right, we're gonna keep going. Pro tips, all right? I think many of us have been on Zoom meetings like this, party down low, business up top. It happens. Just make sure that no one else knows, right? But one of the best tips that I can give is don't record the meeting if you're in person with the legislator or Facebook Live it. Legislators, this is about building trust and building a relationship, right? And they want to trust that when they have conversations with you, that they're in confidence, and if there's something that's going to be shared publicly, that you will communicate that to them in advance. And so don't make them feel uneasy or on edge, because that's not a good way to start off building a relationship with someone. You, of course, want to dress appropriately, depending on whether it's in person or virtual. You get to decide whether it's from the waist up or not. During the meeting, make sure that you're paying attention. You don't want to be looking away or looking around. And this is sometimes this is an issue that some legislators can have, where they're looking for where's their next meeting, who's the next person they need to talk to. You don't want to be that person, and you want to be able to hone in on them and make them feel welcomed and focus on what they're saying so that they can in return that and focus on what you're saying and what you're asking of them. And then, of course, be aware to watch your facial expressions. It seems really simple, but oftentimes so many people aren't aware of what they're doing with their face when they're sitting in a meeting and they're listening, and it shows completely. And then they go, "Oh crap! Did I just frown?" Or if you disagree with something that the legislator says, right? Being in control of that and being able to keep your face straight, and then come back and say, "Well, what about this?" Right? Instead of completely making a grimace on your face and maybe potentially turning that legislator off that you need to get things done. And then if you're virtually, the chat, right? Don't use it for private messages because one, you don't know who's keeping the transcripts. You don't want to accidentally send a message to someone that you didn't mean to. And I've seen that happen, or you accidentally send it to everyone in the meeting and now you're going, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that," and trying to apologize and make up because you didn't mean to send that to everyone in the group. So just being aware of those things. Kim, your question. Oh, Kim, you're muted if you're speaking.
Kim Johnson. Hello, everybody. Got a quick question. What about when we are thinking about having some type of interaction where we would like to invite the legislator to either an event or like a face-to-face conversation away maybe from their office and maybe in the community? Do you have any tips on that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Kim. That's a great question. I think that legislators love the opportunity to meet in their district. So just being aware that if you're inviting them to a meeting that's outside of their offices, that space is inside of their district because they want to see business owners, they want to see their constituents and be able to say, "I'm in my district actively meeting with partners and community members." And so you also have to be aware though, are they currently in session? Because if they're in session, they may need to be at the Capitol, right? Or they may need to be at City Hall if they have a vote to take. And so just being aware when you schedule your meeting of that. But I know that outside of session, legislators love the opportunity to meet in their district at a local small business, right? That's something that they can pride themselves on saying, and I'm supporting a small business, I'm meeting with partners in my community amongst my constituents. So that's a great opportunity. That's a great question, Kim.
Thank you.
Looks like there's a few questions in the chat, Joshua.
Oh, I can't see the chat. Do you mind reading those for me?
I sure can. So one of the questions is from Brenda, and they ask, are drop-bys or drop-offs helpful? We have done a welcome back drop-off of materials and introduced ourselves to their staff. Are these valuable, or should we skip this and work on meetings only?
That is a great question, Brenda. Drop-offs are helpful, and something else that's mentioned in that question is staff. Is never underestimate the importance of staff, right? And so you may not get to meet with the legislator directly, but having a point of contact on their staff can sometimes be just as valuable, if not more valuable. That legislator has chosen these people because they trust them. They know that their value systems align with theirs and that they're good people in most cases. And so if you have a good relationship with the staff person, it may be a legislative aide, it could be a chief of staff, that can sometimes be much more valuable than actually the legislator, because oftentimes those people control their schedule. They control who gets meetings with individuals and they control who doesn't. And so that's also an opportunity for relationship building. If you're trying to get to a legislator, remember that their staff is important. And these are actually more than likely the folks who are going through the legislation, reviewing it, offering edits, and then briefing the elected official on those edits and what their thoughts are on it. And so you can definitely drop by materials in advance. But I would like to say, short of a drop by, you want to make sure that they get to know someone and they see someone, right? This is about an interpersonal connection and building a relationship, making a face-to-face connection. So you don't want to just like mail materials because it'll get lost in the never-ending black hole. You want to make sure that you introduce yourself to someone and say, "Hey, we're just dropping this off. We want to introduce ourselves," and you continue to go on to the next office. But that's definitely a great opportunity. What was the next question, Yui?
That's it. There's a comment from Danielle about taking pictures and making sure that you have consent.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely want to do that because you don't want them to be worried about where you're going to post the pictures. The same thing about video. You don't want to put a legislator on edge because then they'll feel like they don't want to take another meeting with you. Follow up or the after party. This is just as important. You've had the meeting with the legislator, you've established that initial contact. You want to, after your meeting, whether it was in person or virtually, sit down with your team and debrief with those that were included, and go through what folks' experience was. How did they feel the meeting went? Did you cover everything on the agenda? What was the time like? Was it too short? Did it run too long? Could we have done a better job of maybe cutting out some of the chit chat? Did we need more chit chat, right? To create that interpersonal connection and talk about the fact that, oh, my daughter goes to this school, or my son does this, plays this sport with your daughter. Like, do we need more of that? And really evaluate how the meeting went, things that may need to be done as follow-up. You also want to send up follow-up materials that may have been requested. Thank the person for their time and for meeting with you, right? That's something that goes a long way, being able to send an email and say, thank you so much. Here's our next steps. Here's what we like to do. And maybe even follow up with another meeting. Here's when we like to let us know if you're available on any of these days. And that can be helpful to continue to move along with establishing this relationship. And then just make sure as well that somehow your name and photo are attached, whether it's in the footer, because sometimes we are not the only people that they're meeting with. And so making that visual connection is important, so that they remember, they can go, oh, or if it was a great story, mention something from the story, right? That you share with them about why this issue matters, so that that'll be a trigger. Oh, okay, I remember this group, I remember this organization. That's helpful. And get creative with how you follow up and how you thank them. There's all sorts of creative ways that you can help to ensure that people remember you. Maybe you took a group photo or a screenshot of the Zoom meeting and you share that, say, thank you so much for meeting with us. Or you took a selfie at the end of the meeting if it was in person and you share that selfie with them. They'll love that, and they'd love to share that on social media more than likely. So those are extremely important when following up with legislators. And then, of course, your next steps, if you have any, and what they look like. And then we talked about debriefing and sharing the notes and going through how the meeting went with your colleagues. All right, now we're going to get into some specifics of what it looks like and what our issues are. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Phil, to talk about some of these critical issues, what we offer to you as a resource, and some of the one-pagers that we have for you all. Phil.
Thanks so much, Joshua. That was excellent. Thank you for all that you provided there, and Claudia as well. Really excited to be talking with this group today. I work on the research and evaluation side of the Voices team, so I actually like numbers and data. And research and data are important in the advocacy process. And when you're advocating, you need to make sure that you're making the connection, that you have a way to put the data and research in context. Dr. Edward Sanchez, who's the Chief Medical Officer at the AHA, says it this way: data makes you credible, stories make you memorable. And as Joshua was mentioning, really important to be strategic about that story and have a plan around that story. And that story is a way that you can make that connection to research and data. And then that allows or provides the policymaker the ability to kind of hold on to that information better. So data provides, one way to provide context is to be thinking about how your state or your location compares to other states or other locations. And that's another way to provide kind of a story that for your policymaker. And so here you can see, I'm hoping you're familiar with this. This is the roadmap resource that's put together by the Prenatal-to-Three Impact Center. And we can drop the link in the chat for that. The 2022 state roadmaps have recently been released, and they're a great place to start to understand your policy issues in your state and how they compare to other states. And you're able to download your state-specific roadmap. And so that's a potential leave behind or something that you can share with the policymaker. Go ahead, next slide, please. Additionally, Voices and the AHA have a lot of resources to support policies that you're advocating for. Just like Claudia mentioned, we've got policies that support healthy beginnings, making sure that pregnancy period and infancy is supported, and we've got policies that that support supportive families, as well as policies around quality care and learning. And these are important resources that really can help you in your messaging and your meetings with policymakers. One strong resource is the Fast Facts, and we've recently developed one on mothers, infants, and toddlers. What's really nice about this resource is what it does is it breaks the research down into individual facts and then provides you with talking points. And these talking points have been reviewed and approved by our scientific researchers here at the AHA. So you're able to take those talking points and put them in your media communications or your press releases and things like that. So it is a really easy kind of plug and play, cut and paste situation. Next slide, please. And actually, let's not go to the next slide. Let's just go ahead and go to the one-page leave behind, because we wanted to show you that not only are there data resources where you can look at data about your state and understand the context, but we can also work with you to tailor the one-pager so that in the one-pager, Yui, do you have that? Are you able to show that on the screen? Great. So here's the one-pager, and what we've done here is we've provided a framework in which it's a visually pleasing presentation of information that then we can work with you to tailor so that you are providing messages that are that will help reach your policymaker, your decision maker. Let's go back to the slideshow, if you will. So as I said, we can tailor those one-pagers. We can also develop other resources. Voices, fortunately, has ways to connect with, next slide. Ways to connect with local data that we're able to show local data for your area. And that is one way for you to be able to really put together the story that you want to tell your policymaker with data that is relevant to him or her. And we use a data platform that's called My Sidewalk, which pulls together a variety of different data sources, which can support those 3 different kind of buckets of policy areas. Last slide, if you can, Yui. I just wanted to kind of show you that, and we'll include this link as well, that you can ask for technical assistance like data support, where we can help connect you to local data. And there are a variety of other issues that, that the Voices team can support you in your advocacy efforts. I think that's it for me, Joshua. So I will hand it back to you unless there are any questions.
Sorry, couldn't get myself off mute. Thank you so much for that, Phil. Does anyone have any questions for Phil about the data component? As we said, data makes you credible, stories make you memorable. That's a great way to like recognize that. Does anyone have any questions for Phil on what technical support looks like or anything along those lines? Zakia, Ms. Stewart.
Yes, thank you. So I heard a couple things around ways to use data. I'm scrolling to my notes. Yeah, so ways to think about data. So one of them was comparing your state to another state. Could you expound on some other ways to think about how we could use data?
So really good question, and thank you for putting that out there. And I would say, Zakia, this is something that we're working on in terms of like really thinking about how to make the most compelling pieces for policymakers. And it's probably not a one size fits all answer. So I would say the more that you can learn about your policymaker and the more that you can figure out what is important to them, that would be really helpful. But one way to think about it is, as I say, local comparisons. Often what is happening in adjacent communities or adjacent states, that can be really compelling. Comparing it to the nation as a whole is another compelling way to think about using data, as well as looking at trends over time. And this might take more work to get there, but also thinking about, okay, what are the outcomes that are most important to that policymaker? Sometimes it does get back to economic issues. And so is there a way that you can do that with the data? Thanks for that.
Thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Oh, and then Molly.
Thanks so much, Joshua, for the opportunity to ask the question. So I put a question in the chat that's just around if you don't have any implementation or evidence data, so much of what happens with children and families, funders or legislators request, what's your evidence that this will work? And oftentimes our organization doesn't have one. So do you just use then data on the potential need of your project or your idea? Or what would you do in the case where you don't have any long-standing evidence of the success of your project? Or yeah, I guess that's my question. Thanks.
Excellent question, Molly, and thanks for that. And I wish I had an excellent answer. And I don't think I really do. I mean, I think it is really looking through and thinking through how you can approach providing the information that will be compelling to the decision maker. Sometimes one of the things that I would say is that all the policies that the AHA gets behind are policies that have a rigorous scientific background on it, as well as I mentioned the prenatal-to-three impact center as well. We've done a lot of research in terms of really looking at the evidence base and then choosing policies based upon that evidence base. So yeah, I think I would stop there and really think about what it is that will speak to the policymaker if there's not the direct evidence that you wish that were there.
Thank you so much, Phil. Yui, you have a question, or is that
From
the chat?
Yes, from the chat. Colleen is wondering if there is a link for my sidewalk.
Sure, let's follow up with that. And as I mentioned, that is technical assistance that we can provide as as supporting other groups working in this space. So we can provide information about My Sidewalk as well as the library of data that is already within the My Sidewalk platform.
Thomas.
Thank you very much. Just listening to a gentleman back when he said that legislators like information that's backed by solid science. So my question is, we've just gone through a worldwide issue with COVID, and only half the science is being looked at. You know, there's a ton of scientists, doctors, researchers that are on one side and a ton on the other side. But the mainstream media, and for the most part, legislators, are only looking at one side of the science. So I don't really think you're going to have a good answer, but I'm willing to listen to what you say.
Thomas, thanks for that. And I would say, indeed, we are in a place right now in which science and facts are challenged, and there is a open discussion about scientific approaches. I think that we do. One of the things that the AHA, prides itself on is being a science-based organization, and we do conduct rigorous reviews of the policies that we get behind. That's not to say that there will not be arguments on the other side. That's not to say that there won't be some other ways to look at the situation. However, there is much the scientific method that allows us to really advance our understanding and learn from policy approaches to make positive social change. Thanks for that.
Yeah, if I could just follow up quickly. I don't want to take too much time, but the reality is, in this situation of COVID, both sides haven't been looked at. They haven't been looked at. They have absolutely not been looked at. I can show you all a video from the World Health Organization where they admit in their meeting in December of 2019 that there is no safety science for the current vaccine schedule. And yet all of our legislators, all of our media push it and push it and push it when we have the World Health Organization themselves admitting there's no science. So I know you don't have an answer for my question, but both sides are not currently being looked at.
I think that's a really great point, Thomas, and I appreciate it. We'd like to hope that as we do this work in the prenatal-to-three space and we talk about improving outcomes and conditions for our children and their development, that there will be less contention and less on what the actual data says. And so that's the work where we're hoping to. And so in our experience, everyone loves babies and children and wants to see them be successful and thrive. And so we just want to make sure that we're putting policies in place. And so I think there's less contention on that subject, but that's definitely a great point. And thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, Thomas. And we're running a little bit behind schedule, but this is good because it's given us an opportunity to get some good questions in and have some good dialogue, which is what we want this to be. We want this to be a resource to you all. And so what I like to do, we were supposed to go into kind of smaller breakout rooms and kind of do role playing with meeting with legislators on each person have a different role of a storyteller, pick an issue, someone be a meeting leader, someone be a storyteller. Example, by a show of hands, either your actual hand on screen or your virtual hand, who would like the opportunity to do that? And if there's not that many that would like the opportunity, I just open up the floor for more questions in the last couple of minutes that we have here, because I understand that all of you have busy schedules and we want to continue to move along. I'm looking. What does it look like, Yui? We got a few. I think it seems like everyone feels comfortable. For the most part, everyone feels really comfortable with the meeting roles. And so what we'll do as well is we'll share those slides with you so that you can have them as an example. Does anyone have any closing questions for us as we wrap up? Because I know that you all, I'm sure you guys have more meetings to go to. Oh, and one last thing, let me share. Yui dropped it in the chat. We have a survey for you all to get your feedback, because that's important in how we move forward and how we do this work. So if you have your phone, you can take an opportunity to scan that QR code or click the link that Yui dropped in the chat. We want your feedback, your questions, your comments, your concerns, and that will take you directly to our survey so that we can get your feedback before you all drop off. That'll be very helpful. And we'll actually email that out to you as well. We'll send it to you as a follow-up. But if you have 60 seconds to go ahead and click through and give us your feedback right now, that would be great. I'm not seeing, it looks like folks are posting in the chat and people have to hop off. Well, again, on behalf of the National Collaborative for Infants and Toddlers, Voices for Healthy Kids, and all of you doing this great work in the prenatal-to-three space, we say thank you for joining us today. And hopefully this helped you to grasp a little bit more understanding of some of the things, strategies, and tactics you can use for engaging newly elected legislators so that ultimately we can accomplish our goal of improving outcomes for our children and our youth. So again, thank you all for joining us so much today. We appreciate it.